show here. Keep it right here. In fact, our question on the table right now is, what do you want the federal government to do to help your schools, your kids' school, your school district? What can they do? What should they do to improve the education of your children in your community? 888-630-9625, 888-630 WMAL. Joining us right now, Bill McCollum, former congressman, and now he's got a very fancy title. He is the chairman of the Republican State Leadership Committee, and he wrote an op-ed yesterday in the Washington Post endorsing Betsy DeVos, who just made it out of committee by a slim one-vote margin. That's the party lines there, and her nomination for Education Secretary will make it to the floor of the Senate. So, Mr. McCollum, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be with you. It's my pleasure.
Your case very much had to do with Betsy DeVos actually putting parents back in the driver's seat for education policy in America. Please explain.
Well, I think the important thing for us to remember is that the education system of this country is fundamentally a local decision-making proposition. Parents and the children are the ones who should be empowered to make these choices that we have not seen in all cases across the country in the last few years. Rather than having Washington top-down telling local school boards and parents and teachers and principals what to do, we need to empower them to do it and to lift some of the restrictions that have been put in place in the past federally and in the states that keep that from happening.
Well, listen, I mean, it's easy for us to say, you know, what happens in your home state of Florida and what makes sense for the kids in your schools down there might not make the same sense here in the Washington area or Maryland and Virginia. But for that matter, what works for Prince George's County, Maryland, might not work for Frederick County, Maryland. This is really the most direct and intimate representative government we have is our school board members, isn't it?
Well, it is. And Betsy DeVos understands that. I think that's her position, going to be her position as the new Secretary of Education when she's confirmed, and I think she will be. And I certainly favor that. You know, what the real issue here is that we've had in many parts of the country, especially in our urban areas and our big cities and in the areas where impoverished children go to school, we've had often the unions, the teachers' unions, blocking the progress that's been made in some other communities where they've been able to use various methods, whether that's the choice of going to a charter school where those work, or maybe in some cases vouchers, or just other creative ideas the local community and the state may come up with. And I think that's what Betsy advocates, what she has advocated in Michigan very strongly, and in my state of Florida, where the family has a lot of interest. I'm from Orlando, and her family owns the Orlando Magic basketball team, so I've seen a great deal of the DeVos family and feel very, very confident in what I feel about her and what she's going to do when she's the new secretary.
You know, as a conservative Republican, it's probably anachronistic to ask the question, what do you want the federal government to do to help your schools? I mean, the question, the answer is stay out, right? But there are some things that the Secretary of Education can do and the Education Department can do. What would you put at the top of that list?
Well, I think they can provide resources. I think they can provide some suggestions, at least, on accountability. I don't think you want Common Core or somebody dictating the curriculum, but I do think that you need a leader in Washington in this position who's going to espouse the types of things that Ms. DeVos does, and that is, here's the success in other communities where they've had charter schools or where they've had this other type of school. Be innovative. Go out and try to help the youngsters in those communities get along. I'll tell you, there are a lot of programs. I've seen them. I'm a Kiwanian, and I go to my Kiwanis Club, and we help a lot of kids. That's what it's all about. And I've seen programs coming just in that environment, not just my public service life, where we have private individuals and groups that go out and go in an individual school and work with the public school teachers and create incredible mentoring programs, actually provide funding for special teachers who spend hours that most couldn't do, who go to the home and not just see the child in the school when you have the disruptive situations you do in many single-parent and working homes in impoverished areas where the parent maybe is in an area infested by drugs and crime and so on. And the success rates for some of those programs are very exemplary. So I think the federal government, in the sense of the Secretary of Education and those working with her, can show those examples and provide the opportunities for others to replicate that, perhaps suggest a variety of things that might not otherwise be available, or the communities in the various areas of the country might not be aware of. How to break through this barrier to children who simply are handicapped by the condition of their family life or their their income levels.
Well, what did you make of these confirmation hearings where so much of the discussion appeared to be about the character of Betsy DeVos and who she is as a human being rather than education policy in this country? And the Democrats who were most vitriolic against Ms. DeVos have very, very strong ties and are funded by the teachers union. Why is the teachers union so concerned about Betsy DeVos as Secretary of Education?
Well, I happen to chair this organization where we go out and we help elect Republican state legislative leaders and others in state government, and we now control 69 of the 99 state legislative bodies. So I hear a lot about this from them, as well as observing it myself when I was a candidate for governor in my state. There are many good public teachers, many of them, and there are certainly good union representatives, but unfortunately too many of them have looked at it more as how do we protect our jobs, how do we increase the pay for the teachers, how do we keep somebody on the job regardless of whether they're really good quality teachers or not. And they're extremely sensitive to that, and I understand that sense of the preservation of the job and security. But when I was campaigning for governor, I remember bringing together a group of charter school principals in Miami, 7 or 8 of them, and I had them together in that group, and they were very successful. They were in impoverished areas. They had records like Betsy DeVos just talked about in Michigan. And I wanted to know what is the single one thing that you believe made the difference of why you were successful in your charter schools with these results as opposed to public schools or perhaps some other charter schools. Mm-hmm. And the answer from all of them, each one of them, was we can hire and fire the teachers. We have the right to do that. In most public schools, the principals don't have that power. It's a special grant in Florida, and I think in other states where they've gone the charter route, that allows the principal to really control this. And teachers historically, with understandable reasons, have been concerned, public school teachers, that principals are biased, that things will happen, will be bad, I'll lose my job, et cetera, et cetera. There's a great fear of that out there. Yeah. But that's the accountability part. You need to have the school board and the superintendent accountable to the people, and you need to have the principals accountable to the school board and the superintendent.
Of course.
And then you got to hire them, and then somebody's got to be able to oversee this and manage it. That's why I think charter schools, when run right and accountability is applied to them, are more successful. There's a greater degree, truly, of that system. But the local government and the local school board and the state have to make these decisions in their particular circumstances, not the federal government.
Yes, not dictated from Washington. Former Congressman and Attorney General of the state of Florida, Bill McCollum, now Chairman of the Republican State Leadership Committee. Thanks for joining us, sir, on that. And your call's next. What can the feds do to help your schools? It's your school, after all, not theirs.